Hi, and welcome to the Writing Biz. This is where we take care of the business of writing. I am your host, Laura Williams. I'm a writer and the owner of Good Inklings, where I develop and create and market content for clients to help them empower their brands. This episode is part 2 of our 3-part blogging series. Last week we had Mark Ensign on, and we had a wonderful show with him. And this week I have Chef Dennis Littley and Carolyn Capern, and they're going to talk to us about how you can use your blog and your marketing plan. Before we get started, let me introduce you to our guests. First, Chef Dennis Littley is a well-known food blogger. He is an executive chef and a culinary instructor, and he's also the host of 3 wonderful Hangout on Air shows. Good Day Google Plus, Around the Kitchen Table, and the Food and Booze Show with Mia Voss. Chef, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, Lauren. Thanks so much for having me on. It's such a delight to be here. And finally, on a Hangout Live, well, I was on one with Carolyn, but on a live with another Floridian, since I am in Florida now. So
I know, that's what I was telling Mark last week. I said, it's so funny. I have you this week, and he's over in the Tampa area, and I said, and then next week I have Carolyn and Chef, and they're in the Orlando area. And I said, I need to see if I can find a guest for next week that's from Florida. It'll be like a Florida trifecta. It's pretty ironic.
I did start a new show, too, so I have a 4th one now.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I said the first one was Saturday, and it's called On the Road with Chef Dennis. And I was at a cute little inn in Indyland, Florida, over by Melbourne Beach, called Tuckaway Shores Resort, and I did a hangout from there with a bunch of eggheads for the big green eggs. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, wow. You should think about maybe heading over into Mount Dora one day and doing one from there. That's a beautiful area. They have a lot to offer. So
I love Mount Dora. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. Our other guest today is Carolyn Capern, and Carolyn's a speaker, a blogger, and a partner at CT Social. And the last time Carolyn was on the show, she talked to us about branding, and she always has great ideas on how to improve your marketing strategy. And how have you been, Carolyn?
Oh, I've been good, Laura. It's great to be back. We've been pretty busy since the last time I was on the show back in July, and it's really been a whirlwind, but been having fun hanging out with Dennis and some of the other folks here locally. And speaking at Florida BlogCon and sharing all about Google Plus, and yeah, it's just been awesome.
Well, you were just up north too. Was that just on a private vacation, or did that have to do with business too?
Not a business trip this time, although I did get to see some business friends. One of whom I met at the conference that I was at when we were last on together, No, it was mostly a personal vacation. I had a wedding and an anniversary party to attend, so
you
very nice to be there.
You deserve that vacation because you work really hard. Yeah, so tonight we want to talk about marketing and your blog, and a lot of people they think that just having a blog is enough, and that's kind of marketing by itself, but it's in my opinion, and to many other people in this business, it's really not. It's just one other tool that's in your toolbox. And I want to ask you all some questions, but I am going to ask you both, first of all, the first question I have, and that's why is a blog a must for a writer? Because I do believe it's a must. If you are in the business of writing, if you're trying to get your name out there, I do believe it's a must. I'll go ahead and start with you, Carolyn. How would you answer that question?
Well, sure. I think having a blog for an author is definitely a no-brainer. It's very, very important to have it be a key piece of your online strategy, mostly because it's a chance to tell your story and your book's story far beyond the pages of the book itself. It's a chance for your readers to connect with you on a deeper level if you choose to use it to share a bit more of yourself personally. It's also a chance to tell, the story behind the stories and talk about the writing part itself, or what's coming up next for you. It's a good update tool for sure, as well as a deeper storytelling tool.
I couldn't agree more with that. Chef, what would you add to that?
Well, I think a blog, for the very reason is, if you enjoy writing, if you're a writer because you enjoy writing. It's not you've taken this on as a job just to try to earn money. No, it's a passion. And no matter what you write about, like my brother writes about something I don't even understand. He's got his doctorate, and I said, "Will people read this?" He goes, "Oh yeah." I said, "Well, if you like writing, you should start a blog and write about it, because it's a way to express yourself. And whether you're a published author or not, no matter what you do, whatever kind of business it is, whether you're selling paint, if you've got a story to tell and you can make some story interesting enough for people to want to read it and draw them into your web of whatever it is, your business, your association, your friends, whatever group you're trying to bring them into, you're creating a way to form a bond with these people and for them to connect with you on a very personal level. And it may even be just straight black and white dynamics, physics, whatever it is, but you're still giving them a chance to know you as someone who speaks their language. So it's very important for anyone, and I've learned that there's so many kinds of bloggers by going on to Google+. I'm always amazed when I go, "You got a blog? People read that?" I'm like, "Yeah, wow." So that's what I'm thinking. It's that interpersonal connection that allows us a way to just get ourselves in other people's lives.
I think too that as a writer too, it helps you develop as a writer, but also to develop your ideas. I know that several times I've sat down to write a blog, and it ends up being something completely different than what my original intention was, and much better than what it would have been with my original intention. Because of that, it just allowed my brain to kind of kick into gear and rethink my ideas and get a better focus on things.
Yeah, if I let a post sit for too long before finishing it ends up getting changed completely. I might as well have been bothered.
That's fine. I do the same thing. I'm sure Carolyn does too. Yeah, and I understand.
Oh yeah.
I went to.
And there's.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, there's no doubt that, to your point about how it can help you cultivate ideas, it can also help you cultivate short-form ideas in a blog post that are easily later expandable into a long-form book. Mark Ensign is a great current example of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, exactly. And Nina Amir too also does the blog a book program, to where you do blog posts about a certain subject, or you reevaluate the posts you already have and build a book out of that, which is an incredibly useful tool. I was at an event last night. I have been doing all the writing for a gentleman that was running for Congress, which he didn't win, but that's neither here nor there. But I was approached by a lady who had been impressed by the work I had done with him, and she's a writer. And she's in a very specific genre of writing, a very specific niche. And she was interested in having me help her develop her social media program. But that was one of the things we talked about, was blogging. She said the problem she's having, her book has been done. The publishers love it. Everybody who's looked at it has loved it. But she cannot get an agent to represent her because she has no platform. So all the shows that we've mentioned, is almost every single show that I've done about how important that platform is, this lady now is paying that price, because if she's a year out now for developing the platform, and she's already waited too long. So, it's we can't say enough about using your blog and all the other information you have to your disposal to build that platform, and how important it is.
Oh yeah, I've had a similar experience actually. I've been working with an author for a while who has not had much of an online presence previous to the last 2 years. She had a website, and it's there, but as we all know, if you just put a website out there these days, not much is likely to happen with it. It sits there, and occasionally, if someone knows your name or finds your books, they might get there eventually. But otherwise, you have to be active. You have to be doing things. So we've been helping her to gradually develop this presence, and it's been an extensive process, especially because she's had to train herself to think like a marketer, which is
Yeah,
kind
and
of a
that's
foreign concept for some authors.
that's exactly what I talked to her about. That she said it's so foreign to her way of thinking that it's she's an amazing woman. She goes around to different events and she does storytelling on Florida history, which is not what her book is about. Her book is um, uh, growing up as a child in Vietnam as an American. There's a lot more to it than that. I don't want to get into it. I don't know how secret her stuff is, but she's a fascinating woman. So it's going to be a lot of fun to get into that and to see where she can best use her time and energy. So it's going to be cool. I was talking to Chef earlier in the green room, and one of the things I brought up, and I think this is a problem for a lot of people when they start blogging, but particularly for writers, and the reason I say that is how to find your voice for your blog. Your blog may have a completely different voice than what your book does. It could be two different things. Your book is telling the story of events or whatever, and your blog can be either more you or more business-like or anything like that. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Now, Chef, I know you've been blogging for a long time, and you also, I have to mention this right now, as a matter of fact. Last year, I missed the first year, but last year I watched almost every module of your second annual Virtual Bloggers Conference. And I can't wait till this year, so I hope you're doing it again this year.
Oh, absolutely. When I have this many talented friends, I have to find some way to get them all together. So
it's just amazing. And the information, I put it in the comments, in the links, and I'll put it, of course, in the blog posts that I do, and also the show notes for the podcast. But the information that is in that series is just incredible, absolutely incredible. I loved every single minute of it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No.
It was a lot of work, but
Thank
it was very rewarding and very, it was a lot of fun doing it too. And it taught me, like the first year I did it 2 years ago, it taught me how to flawlessly set up a Hangout on air, because that first time I did 6 the first day, and Ronnie Binzer gave me a system, and I followed it every time. I shut my computer off, I walked away from it, I came back on, turned it on. I had it down pat. So for me, people are scrambling sometimes because they can't get something working. I'm like, oh, you just click, 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 boom, it's done. It did do that for me. So.
Oh, that's awesome, though. I'm so glad to hear you're doing that again. But you're a very good person to ask about that voice in the blog. How do you feel about that? Do you find that in the different projects that you do, that your voice changes according to the project? Are you kind of consistent across the board?
Well, I think my voice is consistent. What I'm talking about changes. I mean, I'm very fortunate in the fact that when I branded as me. Okay, I don't have another blog name that I have to stay behind and be that persona. I am Chef Dennis. So Chef Dennis is a multifaceted person. You don't get to be this old without having a lot of different things to talk about and do. It's just part of life and growing up and being able to do these different things. So I go in different areas. Someone was saying, well, I didn't know Chef Dennis was an SEO guy. And I'm not, but I know a guy that is. And that's one thing about what I do. So when I look at the different projects I do, I think I keep the same voice. It's just that I take it in whatever direction is appropriate. And it's always me that's coming out. Now, in writing, that can really get hard sometimes, because if it's not happening and you're trying to use your voice to write something, if it's not like a technical piece that you're writing or just an informational piece that you're writing, it's sometimes hard to let it come out, and it's got to be natural. I think one of the biggest aha moments for me, in one way or another, I'm running one of these these seminars that I did, and I have David Leet, I have Diane Jacob, I forget who the other person was, but equally awesome, and they're talking about how to write blogs and things you should do. At the end of it, I'm going, I'm surprised anybody reads a word I write. I'm doing everything wrong. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I suck. And then after a few days, I realized, that's my voice, though. That's who I am. Just because I'm not falling into their mold of who I should be and what I should be doesn't mean it's wrong.
Right. Right. Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. I think that when they say find your voice is that uniqueness about yourself, and you need to be more forgiving with yourself, because if people are interested in what you're saying, they'll find you. You know what I mean? They'll start to follow you and everything. And the thing that might interest them, I have this one young blogger that I follow, and I think he's 18 years old, and he's a creative writer. But he is so highly entertaining. And I found him by accident. It was completely off my radar. Found him completely by accident. But the reason I like him so much is because of that voice. He doesn't sound like everybody else. He doesn't sound like every writer, every blogger, or anything. He is just, he's young enough to where he's not worried about it. And he does a wonderful, wonderful job.
Maybe that's it. I'm old enough where I'm not worried about it anymore.
Yeah, that might be part of it too. Yeah. Carolyn, what do you think about that? I know, see, you get it from another perspective, because not only do you blog for yourself, you advise people how to blog and also blog for other people. So you're much like myself, because I blog for companies all over the United States. So I have to transition my voice from me to them more often than not. So tell me what you think about that.
It is a very interesting challenge to not only be working on honing your own voice, because I do blog for myself, as you said. I blog for CT Social as a marketer. I blog for Central Florida Top 5 as a foodie and or just local events nut. I have blogged for lawyers and other writers and marketing companies and insurance people, and I don't even know what all else at this point. It really gets to the point where you have to develop almost a little system of sorts for identifying the core elements of the voices of the people that you write for, and most importantly, so that you can switch your identity on and off. But you kind of learn that it's tricky. It really is to turn off yourself. That's why Chef Dennis's position is so enviable, as someone who is thoroughly branded himself as himself. And I feel that freedom when I write for CT Social and for the other things I do as Carolyn. But you sometimes get to noticing, oh, that's me creeping in there. That's not this brand.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's challenging.
I was complaining to a girlfriend of mine one day. I had a lot of projects that I had to finish up. So I was jumping from these different clients' projects, and all of them are remotely different from the other ones, and my own stuff. And I told her at the end of the day, I said, I'm so exhausted. It's every time I had to just become this other thing to get this done. And it was over and over all day. I was just like, I'm done. I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
I couldn't take it.
It takes the whole multiple personality thing to a new level.
It does. It does. It's not easy to do. I guess that's why we keep doing what we're doing. I mean,
Yes.
People keep paying us, so.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I honestly do love the variety. I feel like my creative identity is enriched by every brand I get to take on, and that at this point I'm getting to the position where I want to be quite selective about who I take on, and start to look for ones that really suit me too, that I can write with some considerable passion about, because I have some kind of knowledge of what it's all about. Because really, I think it's difficult to substitute genuine personality, genuine enthusiasm, and genuine expertise. It's just difficult to mimic. And good content writers learn how to do that by spending a lot of time with the subject matter and just immersing themselves in it as thoroughly as possible until they feel like they understand it and can at least pull off a decent imitation of that kind of enthusiasm, or conducting interviews, extensive research to demonstrate expertise. But I think even at the basic level of when you're coming up with topic ideas, a lot of content writers, you start at the very basic 101 level, when you're writing the posts, because that's all you can figure out to ask, unless the client specifically asks you for a little bit more.
Right. Yeah, I think that as a writer too, I a lot of times they don't realize how much content they have available to them to create. I mean, if you just take, let's say, a romance novel. I mean, there's so many aspects of that romance novel that would make good blog posts, because you don't want your blog post to say, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. But if you're telling a story about your book, if you're telling a story about how you struggled with a scene, or if you're trying to show what your thought processes were for developing this character and their journey through the book, or if you want to talk about the historical time the book was placed in, or compare it to now, or I mean, there's so many things. There's so many different things that you can write about. And I think that understanding that is so important, that you're not writing so much about your book, but about the story of your book and the developmental process. There's just a lot, even as a new author, there is so much information there that you can use to develop into other things if you just take the time and try to be creative about it. And you know me, Carolyn, you know how I am about doing the editorial calendar and being organized and everything like that. But if that's too intimidating for you, don't. Just write a list of questions that you think your writers want to know about and start from there. And everything will kind of come into place, I think. But I just think that, if you put too many fear aspects in front of yourself, you're never going to get anything done. So just try to limit them and be a little freer with yourself.
That's true. Sometimes the easiest thing to do is just, as you go about your day, if you have a thought of something that could be expanded into a blog post, grab your notebook, grab your cell phone, put it in a OneNote, put it in an Evernote, whatever your system is. Just capture the idea and start writing it when you get a chance. But at least don't let the idea pass you by. A lot of good blog posts come out of that, just that random thought.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep. And if you don't write it down right then, or like you said, do it in a voice memo or something, you will lose it, and then you'll be sitting there later in the day saying, "Oh, that was so good. I just have no idea what it was."
I can't tell you how often that's happened to me.
Yeah, right. I wanted to talk a little bit about guest blogging. Now, I'm going to tell you my opinion is I am a big, huge fan on relationships and collaborations. So I think guest blogging is wonderful. As long as it's a reciprocal type relationship, I think it's wonderful. A lot of people don't like it because they think that it affects the competition for their product or their book or something. So I just wanted to see y'all weigh in on that and tell me what you think about guest blogging. If you've done it, if you've had good experience, bad experiences, or how it's helped you to gain traffic in your own businesses. Or Chef, I'll go ahead and start with you.
Well, as a food blogger, I used to have a series on my blog where I featured a guest blogger, I think it was every Friday or whatever day it was. I don't remember now. But I ran it for almost 2 years. And I had a lot of really good experiences with it, and I had some really bad experiences with it too. People that you think are going to give you a quality product, put on your blog, because it was giving them a way to get my viewers. It's always a mutual benefit. Their viewers are sending them to me, and I'm putting them in front of mine. But sometimes you look at it and go, really, is this the best you can do? And they weren't viewing it as, because they're saving the best for their blog. I don't know. It just, like I said, sometimes the results were great. I did form a lot of really good friendships because of it, because of helping people and having them on and doing it, So that part of it was definitely worth it. It got to a point, though, where I was done with it. And the worst part was And I don't want to put myself like, oh, I'm so busy I can't do it. But I barely get posts out for my own blog. And when people would ask me to post for theirs, I just didn't have the time or the energy to do it. So that was another reason to get out of it. I hate turning people down that were doing it for me, but that's not why I'm doing it, kind of a thing. So I've kind of stopped it. And then for a while there, Google had squished it a bit, about how it wasn't really a good thing. guest posting, and I think they got over that pretty quickly. But I pretty much just stopped it. I don't do it. I get a lot of requests from people I don't know constantly that they want to give me content for my blog, and I think that they have to be crazy, because anybody that would let them, you shouldn't really want to put it on their blog. If they're stupid enough to let you do that, not knowing you, no, I have good content and it won't cost you a penny. I'm like, really? Well, it's going to cost you $1,500 to put it on my blog. All right.
Clear that up really fast.
Depending upon the mood I'm in, that's the email I will send back.
That's funny.
Yeah, so,
what about you, Carolyn? How's that gone for you?
Well, I totally get what Chef Dennis is saying about the time factor. That's my one greatest regret as someone who would like to contribute more guest blogs to other people. Hello to your little kitten friend there.
She's watching. Well, she was. Now
what a cutie. Anyway, I do wish I had time myself to contribute more, because I have trouble, just like Dennis, I have trouble keeping up with my own as it is, and there's definitely a time in the day factor to be considered. But that being said, every time I have contributed a guest blog to someone, I mean, I pride myself on my writing, so I tend to take great care with what I submit to other people. But I've always loved it, and almost always gotten at least social media follows, typically traffic to our site as well as a result. So I love having the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, see, I agree with you. Both of it. It's a time thing too that's just really difficult. And Chef, I've got to give you credit, because to do that every Friday, that takes a lot of organization on your part to make sure that spot's filled and that everything's edited and ready to go. And
yeah.
Boy, that I can understand why that would. I'm surprised lasted 2 years. I don't know if I would have kept doing it that long.
It had its moments where people, they'd forget. I only ever had, I think, 2 people ever just like snubbed me altogether. But for the most part, everybody was really good with it. They'd send it to me. I'd ask for it like by Wednesday, hoping I'd get it Thursday, so I could, because I'm working full time at this point too. So I got to find a time when I can put it all together, and if there are questions. But it was really fun for a long time, and like I said, I got to bring a lot of people in and meet and on a deeper level, and meet a lot of people and really get to know some because of that. So it was good. And like Carolyn said, you would think, like, if I'm giving you something, I'm going to give you something that I would put on my blog. They'd always ask me, how should I write it? He says, write it just like you'd put it on your blog, just make the intro a little shorter, that's all. And be the quality.
That's part of the, I would think, part of the opportunity you're looking for with inviting a guest blogger on is that different voice and that different style. It's refreshing, and to hear a different opinion, because you can learn something from it as well as your audience. So no, I think that's a very important.
Introducing my readers to, since I was a food blogger, to a whole other area of different kind of food bloggers too, because they ran the gamut from all over the world. So it was really cool.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, sure. I bet you that's just fascinating to do food blogging. It would never get boring, because there's always, it's such a dynamic field. There's just so many changes every year. New things that are more popular, things that go out, different trends.
The only thing with food blogging is you have to learn to become quite a good photographer too, or nobody will really take the time to read your blog if you're not pulling them in with those pictures. So for us,
some of your pictures are pretty amazing. I saw one the other day. Oh my goodness, I can't remember which. I want to say it had to do with grilled cheese, but my daughter was sitting here and she saw it too. And it was funny because I just mentioned you. That's what it was. I had just mentioned you. And then, you know what it was? It had to do with pumpkins. Pumpkin coffee cake.
Okay.
That's what it was. I don't know why I had grilled cheese in my mind, but the pumpkin coffee cake, and I said, now see, isn't that funny? He just popped up right in my stream as we're talking about him, and she's like, oh, wait, Mom, we've got to do that. So, yeah, those pictures are definitely the ones that drag in. And I think that's good to remember, too, as we're talking about blogs and marketing, is how valuable those graphics are. Whether it is a graphic that you created with maybe a line from your book, or a picture that you have of a character or whatever, that it should all tie into, first of all, what the content of the blog is itself, that particular post, but also to grab the reader, give them, how many times do we pin pictures that are attached to blog posts because the graphics are so amazing. So it's definitely important to keep that up and to make sure that you are not using other people's graphics when you're not supposed to be.
Absolutely.
So that's a big one.
I like making them on Canva now. Like if I'm not using a photograph or if I need a different kind of graphic, I can, I have absolutely no skill whatsoever as a graphic designer. I mean, and it's quite evident sometimes in some of the things I throw together real quick. But I'll go to Canva and I can put something that looks reasonably attractive in a few minutes and have fun with the fonts and colors. And then when I don't have a picture like I did the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen the other day, I was able to make them without stealing someone else's, because that's basically what you got to do at that point then, is lift someone else's and then ask for permission or give them credit. This way I can just create my own graphic easily.
Right. A lot of times you go from them, and I mean I do have a background in graphic design, so I do have some skills that a lot of people wouldn't have, but I go to the free graphic sites and then I just change up that graphic enough to where it's very different from the original. So it is more of my own, and it's that way if other people have also used the same graphic, it's not looking continually the same too. But those are things that that's kind of, it's hard to kind of talk about on a show like this because it really is something that's intuitive and is by project. It's not an overall thing. But Canva, PicMonkey, you can now get Photoshop in the cloud at a real inexpensive rate. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can handle that. So, but it's important.
I love some of the free stock photo sites that are out there now. There's some genuinely really attractive free ones that are uncopyrighted, and the authors, the photographers make a point of saying use it freely. One of them here, who's here on the Plus that I love, is Thomas Hanna. He's fantastic. If you don't subscribe to his newsletter, I do highly recommend it. Every Monday, 4 beautiful photos right there, and he encourages use for blogs and social media, and he's kind of extra awesome because if you tag him and say I used one of your photos, then he'll share it away too.
Oh, cool! He's a really neat guy. I've recently had a couple of good conversations with him on Google Plus, so he's a very interesting guy. Another thing too, when you do those graphics like that, when you're using them from free sites or whatever, don't always look at the whole picture. You can use, let's say one graphic may have 5 or 6 different elements in them that you may be able to use individually. So sometimes if you just use a part of that graphic, you can use it towards what you're doing. And a lot of people don't think about it that way. But if it may just be a hand or a tree or a building that you could use. It's the only thing, when you do that, though, that's why I kind of stick to those free sites, is because they have them at a very high resolution. It has to be a high resolution picture if you're going to take just a part of it. If it's not, when you go to put it into a graphic and resize it, it'll pixelate and it'll just be a hot mess. So that's my advice on that. Now, I wanted to ask you both, what is the best advice that you can give a writer concerning their blog? The absolute best advice, what you found may either save them time or has been really valuable to you in your career. And Chef, I'll start with you.
I think the best advice I could give them is to make sure they research well whatever they're writing about, so they don't have to keep stopping and starting and going back, because the worst thing you can do is to keep looking up sources. I mean, you want to have a good understanding of whatever you're writing about, whether it's fixing an engine or making a chocolate cake. You want to have that basic knowledge so you can write about it fairly easily, and it comes through in your voice. Otherwise, if you're struggling and you're tagging bits and pieces from here and there, it turns into nothing but a mess, and it doesn't sound like you anymore.
Right. That's very good advice. What about you, Carolyn?
It's tough to pick just one, but in terms of the overall time management factor, and how tough it can be, especially for people who have a separate full-time job from their own blog, to keep up with it, is again that idea capture concept. Come up with a system that works for you. I'll tell you what works for me, and I think it's going to be similar to others as well. I use OneNote, which is in the Microsoft Office suite. Right now it's got an interface similar to Evernote, and so you could basically use the same system there. I set up a notebook for blog ideas, specifically for mine, and every single tab within it is a different article. And I'll just jump in there, drop the idea, and come back to it later. Add a couple paragraphs while I'm sitting waiting for a meeting, come back to it later, just because I can do it from my phone, and it's really, really easy to then go back later and start to put it into a more precise blog format. So
right. That's
making it something you can do on the go is a great way to make it more doable for yourself.
So that's what my advice was going to be, led right into it, which is pretty amazing. And oddly enough, and I didn't intend this, but it leads into next week too, is take advantage of the tools and the programs that are available to you to make it easier for you. WordPress, I mean, I can't say enough good things about it. And there's so many plugins that can help you. There's plugins that can help you get your search engine optimization down pretty good. There's a lot there. Evernote, Google Drive. I don't know if y'all saw that article I posted, but I found an article yesterday or the day before on 12 things that will make you an inch on Google Drive, and some of them I didn't know about. I did not know that you could research right within the Google Doc. It opens up a side pane, and you can search, and it'll pull up the search results right there. I didn't know that. And not only that, but it also will source them into the Google Doc.
That's amazing.
Amazing stuff, right? Yeah, no, there's some really cool stuff. And my newest, most favorite trick is using, I have an Android phone, is using that voice to text to do the blog post, because if I already have it kind of in my head, I could put it in there and then I could just rewrite it and format it, and it cuts down the time by about half. So, because when I write for myself and for my business, I write as I talk. I don't, which a lot of my clients, I don't write that way. I write, in a less casual way. So it works for me. If that's not how your voice is on what you're doing, it would be kind of more difficult. Of course, you could at least get your notes in there and then just kind of, restructure them or rewrite them. But those are big ones for me. And Evernote, which is the same as OneNote, and it's, I know I always go on and on about Evernote, because it really is. It's an amazing tool to help you stay organized and stay focused and get all your things in one place instead of being scattered all over and wasting time trying to figure out, well, I know I had that. Where did I put it? It can be pretty difficult. So, and especially with clients, because then I can put everything into their own little notebooks and everything's organized. Did you guys have a chance to start that inbox, that Google inbox yet?
No, not yet.
I had sent out my invitation, and they have, which you can do it right, was it 3 to 4? Well, we might be a little late. But they had where you could, if you sent them an invite between 3 and 4 Pacific time, you still might be able to try it. They would automatically send you one. I didn't have to do that because I got mine this morning. But it's really neat for helping to organize your inbox, which for all of us, I think is a problem. Always a problem. So
Always.
That's really cool. With OneNote, can you forward emails into OneNote?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you could or not, because I have OneNote too, but I've been using Evernote so long that I've just kind of stuck with that. But that was one of my big selling points on the Evernote, is that I could forward emails right into a client's notebook. And,
that is really nice. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It is. It keeps that stuff out of my inbox and makes me happy.
Yes.
Well, I think what we're going to do is go ahead and close the show. I really want to thank both of you so much for joining me. And, I'd love to talk about blogging, and I think it was pretty interesting. I think that as a writer, it's incredibly important to use a blog in your marketing, not as your sole piece of marketing, but as part of it, and kind of use all the other pieces together in a symbiotic way to get your message out. Next week, we're going to have part 3 of the Writing Biz blogging series, Blogging Tools and Tips. And on that show, I'm going to help you get organized and be more productive so that you can spend more time writing and less time doing all the little nasty tasks that you have to do. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this week of the Writing Biz. And you can find past episodes and all the resources and tools that we mentioned during the show on thewritingbiz.com. I write a blog post to accompany the show, and then also this will be aired on Stitcher Radio and iTunes. So information and everything will be in the show notes for that. And I also put out a newsletter once a week to where I add even more resources into that. If you would like to join the newsletter, please go to my website, thewritingbiz.com. And if you watch podcasts and you enjoy it, please leave me a review. I'd really appreciate it. Chef Dennis, Carolyn, thanks again for joining us. And thank you to everybody who's watching and listening to the Writing Biz, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you.